Mark, you're going to go forward with the first question. It rotates every time afterward. And sometimes the mayoral candidates are going to go first, and other times the trustees are going to go first. But you always rotate order for all of us. So I've got it mapped out here on the sheet of paper. So hopefully you all will keep up. I'll let you all know those too when it's time to respond. I'll say each candidate's name. I've got 1 minute to 6:30. I don't have much. Check 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 8, 1, 2. Testing. Mic 1, 2, 3, 4. I think we'll keep going. All right, we're at 6:30 candidates. Are you all ready? Very good. Good evening, everybody. Can you all hear me okay? I hope so. My name is Jason Sample. I'm with WRFA Radio in Jamestown, New York. I've been asked to moderate this evening's Meet the Candidates Forum. It looks like we have a very full audience here, so thank you all for coming out. Yeah, give yourselves a round of applause. But that will be the only time I ask you to give a round of applause. Regardless of the response you hear, whether you agree with it or not, please no heckling or booing. Allow the candidates an opportunity to maintain their composure and keep it moving along by giving the next candidate an opportunity to respond to the questions. So, as I was saying, my name is Jason Sample. I'm the moderator here. This evening's debate is going to actually have groupings of two candidates. You're going to have the candidate for mayor of the village of Mayville, and you're also going to have the candidates for trustee for the village of Mayville. The forum is split into two parts. The first part is going to focus on 4 separate questions that were provided in advance to each candidate. The second part will focus on any questions from the audience. Now, on that point, please keep this in mind. I ask that if you are in the audience and have a question to ask, please make sure it is a question that can be posed to all candidates and not a single individual candidate. Again, your question must be able to be answered by all candidates and not one single individual candidate. So try to couch your questions in a way that all candidates can respond to rather than putting one particular candidate on point. That'll give everybody an opportunity to have the same amount of time and also respond on the same issue. So we have timed responses, and they aren't always the same time length. The first set of questions, or the first question rather, is going to be 3 minutes. The next 2 questions will be 2 minutes, and then the final question is going to be 1 minute for each candidate to respond. I've got my trusty gavel here. I'm not a judge or anything, but somehow I ended up with a gavel. Don't ask me how. And I'm just going to bang it once when your time is up. Now, candidates, you are welcome to continue to finish your thought. We're not going to cut you off immediately, but I do ask that you wrap it up. And if you go, 20 seconds or so beyond the time limit, I might give you a couple more taps to urge you and prod you along. But again, 1 tap just means your time is up and you're welcome to finish your thought. A couple more taps will mean you're pretty much done. So keep that in mind, but you will have an opportunity to finish your thought at least. And so the second part of the question, again, will allow the audience members to pose. You're going to stand up and ask a question. I'm going to reiterate it before any candidate responds, because we have a set order for the candidates to respond to the questions. So when you stand up, look at me and ask the question, I'll reiterate it, and we'll go down the line for each candidate as they appear on the order here. Speaking of order, we pulled the names from a hat to determine the initial order, who will go first. We did that a few moments ago. Thank you, Debbie, for helping out with that. Debbie is also moderating anything that may come in on, I feel like Judge Judy up here. Debbie will keep an eye on anything that comes across online. This is being streamed on Facebook as well, so keep that in mind. YouTube, Facebook. All right, so with that being said, we're going to rotate the order for each question afterward. We're not always going to go in the same order, so I will indicate to each candidate when it's their time to respond. I think we've got all the ground rules taken care of. Any questions from the candidates? Nope. Very well. Well, let's begin. And we'll begin with the first round of questions that were provided to the candidates in advance. The first question, and we'll pose this question to the mayoral candidates. Why are you running for this position? You each have 3 minutes, and Rick Syper will go first. Rick, it's all yours.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. First, I want to thank you all for coming out tonight. As fall has come upon us last week, so has Mother Nature turning on that fall switch. Again, thank you. Also, Jason Sample for being our moderator tonight, and Bill Ward for working on the format of tonight's Village Hall meeting for all of you tonight. May not have been easy with different opinions, but we are here to talk about our lovely Mayville Village. And most of the love and support from my family, employees, and Lynette. Without her strong understanding of my passion for Mayville, thank you. I love you. She reminds me there's no more room on our walls for old pictures of Mayville. And lastly, the encouragement and strong support from all of you on this journey I've taken. The decision to walk for mayor. 4 years ago, I ran for this position of mayor with a hope of change, to bring people together, to work on our community involvement. For 4 years forward, I see that hope of a village and town working together as we are starting tomorrow night here at 6 p.m. to work together on the comprehensive plan. I've been involved in our community ever since I can remember, as my mother brought me to the family business, also known as S.O. Curate, as some of you may know. I have seen changes like the railroad tracks being removed, along with our overpass bridge. Now we enjoy the new walking trail in its same location, with openness to the lakefront. I have learned through life experience, especially from my 20+ years of serving this community as your elected trustee, through a vast number of projects and help solve many issues facing our village. I would like the opportunity to prove I am qualified to serve you now as mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. We'll now move on to the next mayoral candidate, and that would be Jean Lobaugh. Jean, all yours.
Hello, I'm Jean. Can you hear me okay? Yes. Okay, good. Also, thank you, Bill, for setting this up, and Jason for moderating. And thank you all for coming, because it shows a huge interest in the future of the village. And no matter which way you vote, it's important that you come and participate, and that's what it's all about. I've lived here 18 years. In a lot of people's eyes, that's a newbie. It's kind of a long internship, shall we say. But 18 years is a long time. While we've been here, my husband and I have bought first a Settlemyer home and remodeled it for 6 years and started a business, and then we remodeled the Copeland house and started a business there. I don't tell you that to brag, but kind of give you my background. I will brag about being a hard worker, because we had to work very hard to make that happen. But what I am telling you is that this is what I envision for Mayville, is that we constantly build on our legacy. We constantly renovate, update, keep up with the times, constantly attend to business. And this is what I think we need in Mayville. The village should be run smoothly, predictably, and according to plan, in which case we need plans to abide by. In the long run, this needs to be a place where our children can stay, raise their children. Visitors will enjoy everything that we have to offer. We need to keep the village up to date. I do believe that everyone on the board of the village, and especially the mayor, should earn the trust of the voters. And this opportunity to be mayor would give me an opportunity to give back for everything I've enjoyed and taken for granted while I've been living here. I believe the mayor should be a model for respectful discourse, dedication, planning, organization, and problem solving. An excellent mayor will also inspire and empower individuals and organizations to get involved on a day-to-day basis for day-to-day maintenance and also long-term planning, and make this village a community that everyone in it and everyone who visits it is proud of. I want to be that excellent mayor.
All right. Thank you, Jean. We're now going to move on to the trustee candidates. Again, the question is, why are you running for this position? And we'll begin with candidate Eagle Harrington. Eagle?
Thank you for all coming tonight. The question is why I want to rerun again. There's been a lot of things in the last 4 years that we've started and we have not finished yet, and I'd like to see it all through. The water project, a bunch of other things that I'd like to see it finished. And I think if we get a good group of people together, I'm hoping that we can all work together to make this work the right way. Thank you.
Thank you, Eagle. Again, the question, why are you running for this position? And the next candidate is Mark Perry. Mark?
Thank you, Jason. First of all, it feels like I'm in church. Nobody's in the front row. We'll take a collection when we're done here. You can't hear me?
I can.
Okay. To answer the question quite honestly and candidly, the reason I'm running is out of frustration for what I've seen in the village. I think we've got just an incredible resource here that we're not taking advantage of. My wife Debbie and I, we live over here on Pratt Street. We raised our son. He went to a world-class school up at the top of the hill there. We want to see that for every family. And what I feel we have to do is throw the politics out of the equation. I'm not a Democrat, I'm not a Republican. I'm a business guy. And I think if you look at the definition of a trustee, that's what you'll see. Is a trustee is here to do the village business, to work with others, to build consensus. And I feel through my work experience, I've done that in many different areas. So I will engage the school, which I think is just incredible. I will engage all of you. I would hope that we'll have this kind of attendance at every single meeting. And we're going to take Mayville and move it on. We're going to move it up the ladder to a viable 21st century village and safe. That's another big thing in my belief structure is it's a safe place to raise your family. And I think today that's important. So thank you for the opportunity. I look forward to serving you.
All right, thank you, Mark. Once again, the question, why are you running for this position? And the final candidate to answer the question, trustee candidate Bill Ward. Bill?
Thank you, Jason, and I really appreciate you all being here today. This is a cool thing, and it's great that you guys are carrying on the tradition of showing up at these things. You know, we're at a critical point in this village's history. As Eagle said, a lot of stuff, back when I've heard, a lot of stuff's been started. A lot of energy's been generated. I'm really excited about using that energy, carrying on that energy. And, you know, I'm running because I want to help. As we're going to talk about later, you know, I am qualified to help. I've shown that I can. I'm already at work doing things for this village. As president of the Rails and Trails, we've leveraged our trails here, but I do that because I love this place, and I'm really excited about some of the stuff that's been started. We need an intelligent, capable, talented team to realize the goals we've set and to implement that strategic plan that we're talking about. I've lived here for 30 years, almost. Raised my kids here, brought them here because I love the place and I love the opportunities that were that were presented by the new school. But I've watched a lot of the opportunities slip away, either because of apathy. And guess what? That's not a problem now. You guys are engaged. If the waterfront thing is any example, you know, we had this place full in a monsoon because you guys are interested. I'm interested in helping continue to do that. And I will, whether I'm elected or not, so I probably shouldn't tip that hand. I love this place. I love you guys. I'm very excited about putting together a team, a capable, even-tempered, focused team who can use some of this energy that's being generated right now. Thanks.
Thanks, Bill. Before we move on, I just wanted to ask Mr. Syper, hold your microphone a little bit closer to you, it's a little bit softer. I want to make sure everyone has an opportunity to hear you, so thank you for that. We'll move on to the next question then, and this question you only have 2 minutes to respond to, and we will begin with mayoral candidate Jean Lobaugh. The question is, why do you think you are qualified for this position? Jean?
with a job description for mayor. It has 5 things that I think the mayor should have. So I'm gonna list those 5 things and then tell you how my skill set fits the job description. The first one is communication and people skills. I do listen. I'm very interested in every person that I talk with. I try to listen more than I speak. I'm not afraid to ask questions if I don't understand. That's not a problem. I can work with people at all levels, whether it be, constituents, neighbors, organizations, town, county, state people, anyone we need to bring on board to accomplish our goals. The second thing that I believe is really necessary is organization and time management skills. I've always had to make the most of my time, whether I was raising kids and going to school and getting a degree at the same time, or whether I was running a B&B and renovating a second one. I've always had to really use my time well and be organized. The third thing is leadership skills. I have a long history in the corporate world, and I have learned to run a meeting, to run an efficient and tight meeting. I've learned that preparation is the key for those meetings. Everybody who's in the meeting needs to come prepared and ready to discuss. I believe that respectful disagreement is encouraged, but then we have to move on and make timely decisions. The fourth skill is technical skills and project management. My technical skill is I'm an accountant. I know numbers, I'm not fooled by them. You can give me numbers and I'll figure out what's behind it. I understand investing in the future, and I understand that a leader needs to inspire and motivate everyone on their team to stay on track.
Thank you, Jean. Sorry about that.
No,
We are
that's
trying to
fine.
stay within the time limit
That's
here.
fine. Okay.
With that being said, I got a question. Why do you think you are qualified for this position? Rick Syper, you have 2 minutes.
My qualifications, I've lived here for 53 years of my life, 35 years of business ownership, including acquiring 2 businesses and managing multiple condo associations along with multiple seasonal and full-time employees. Involved in major improvements in my many years serving this village as a trustee under 3 mayors, community building, Carlson Center here tonight, that are present here tonight, park enhancements, the tennis, the pickleball, and basketball courts, the playground, the village green acquisition from the county, electrical line build-up, Patterson Street substation, DPW building, water treatment building, free internet to the Carlson Center, to name a few. Within this, we work as a group directly with engineers to develop a plan that fit our community budget with the help of multi-million-dollar grant funding to support these projects with the hope of securing our family's future of one Mayville. We will need to stay focused on these items while making one village, one community, Mayville strong. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. We'll move on now to the trustee candidates. The question, why do you think you are qualified for this position? You have 2 minutes, Mr. Perry. All yours.
Thank you. As I said earlier, I'm not a politician. I'm a business person with a business background. Presently, I sit on the Westfield Hospital Board. I sit on the Selective Service Board. I also sit on the County Bed Tax Board. So I'm very involved with board work and realize how you have to build a consensus in order to move forward. But you build that consensus based on factual information and go from there. Some days you're going to win, some days you're not, but you're always going forward. The other thing that I'm very proud of is I was the president of the International Food Power Society, which is an international group of thousands of people. And what the neat thing about that is you have to serve in a number of different committees and positions before you can get to the presidency. And as president, you have to build these consensus programs so that you can move forward with certifications and occupational safety and industry standards. So I'm not at all opposed to going against the grain if you have to in order to make your vision known, but I will join the team and keep pushing the ball forward. I think that in Mayville's case, we have the start of a number of good things, but I think we are missing a lot of opportunities, and I will work with the partners that we have, the county, the state, and get some of these funding programs, grants, et cetera, to help us do that. And I want to create an environment that businesses want to come here so that our young people have jobs to look forward to. So, thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Move on to the next candidate. The question, why do you think you are qualified for this position? Again, you have 2 minutes. Bill Ward.
Well, I think everybody here is qualified in some way to serve this community. Everybody's proved in some way that they have a love for this community. As far as I'm concerned, you know, I both in this sort of setting and outside of it, you know, I happen to be the president of the Chautauqua Progressive Trails. I sit on a board on a few boards that require the kind of consensus building that Mark has talked about. We have done some, with the rest of trails, for instance, we have, as I've said, we've leveraged on either side of the trail that Mayville has put forth, the paved trail. We've leveraged the web side, and then we surfaced the other across from 430, so that we're going to have about 5 miles of ADA compliant trail at the end of this lake, which leverages immediately the work that we're doing. The work that we're doing with the, for instance, the waterfront development. I am a member of the waterfront activation committee. I'm external vice president for the Chautauqua County Visitors Bureau. I chair the member relations committee. We have already realized an incredible movement on our strategic plan, which happened only a few months ago. I'm on the executive board of directors of the Chautauqua Watershed Conservancy, which I think does probably the purest work for the environment in this county. I spent 2 years on what folks on both sides of the aisle, by the way, even at the state level, called the best legislature in 30 years. We got a lot done during the pandemic. The only reason that we got a lot done. It was a great experience, and through that, I can leverage a lot of the things that we get to do, a lot of the energy that has been generated. So,
Thank you, Bill. And then the final candidate for this question, why do you think you are qualified for this position? Eagle Harrington, 2 minutes.
Well, I'm going to start out by the same thing I said 4 years ago. I'm of age and I live in the village of Mayville. But besides that, I have been on the board for 4 years now. I've learned exactly what the role is as a trustee. I've also went to NICOM training. That is a very good tool. I hope that whoever gets on the board, go take those trainings. They're really great to do. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. One moment while I reset this analog clock here. We'll move on to question number 3. We'll begin with the trustee candidates for this question, then we'll circle back to the mayoral candidates, just FYI. With that being said, also 2 minutes for a response to this question. The question is, what is your vision for Mayville in the short run and the long run? And we'll begin with trustee candidate Bill Ward. Bill?
Thanks, Jason. I'm talking a lot about energy. I'm talking a lot about leveraging that energy. I don't use those words lightly. Those aren't politics words. That's a real thing. We have some real energy. I'm going to harken back to the waterfront activation thing. And I keep coming to that because it's an example of the kind of energy that, and by the way, the kind of process that we desperately need to pull in to complete a good, workable, comprehensive plan. So in the short run, take that energy from the kind of energy that we have going right now to carefully elevate our most intrinsically valuable assets. The waterfront is a great place to start. In the long run, leverage these assets, obviously. Leverage these assets to elevate uptown. It's critical. Won't happen without a good, well-done, comprehensive plan. And I can say, just getting back to that process, we had the most comprehensive and efficient survey that's ever been done in this village, which led to the kind of response that you saw here in this very place for the waterfront activation plan. That kind of process is what I think is critical in the long run to leverage our valuable assets so that we have a viable uptown and do the kinds of things that Mark was talking about. Make it so that not only is that our kids stay here, but so that people want to bring their families here like we did to raise our children.
Thank you, Bill. Again, the question, what is your vision for Mayville in the short run and the long run? You have 2 minutes, Eagle Harrington.
So the short run, we need to take and get the water project figured out. We need to take and keep the taxes at a decent price like we've been doing for the last 4 years. I've been working hard with all the rest of the trustees and mayors to take and keep it at a flat rate. You know, we're not trying to over exceed. We want to keep Mayville where people want to be. Jacking prices on the water rates, I've worked really hard at keeping that at a base minimum. You know, we went with 50 cents instead of $1.25 each year. Long run, it's just to keep people here, to keep people interested in coming here, to join the meetings, to voicing their opinions. We need to work together. Thank you.
Thank you, Eagle. And then the final trustee candidate, what is your vision for Mayville in the short run and the long run? 2 minutes, Mr. Perry.
Thanks, Jason. In the short run is to get elected. After that, it doesn't matter. But truly, what I think tomorrow night is a huge step for us with the comprehensive plan. I've done a lot of conversing with state people, and almost the first thing out of their mouth is, do you have a comp plan, an up-to-date comp plan? And the answer is no, we don't. And I think that was a failure of leadership over the last few years, that they didn't put one in place, because it isn't today's news, it's yesterday's news, what comp plans are. So that'll be my first goal, is to motivate you people in the community to come, give us your ideas, your visions, and we can put it together on this comp plan and establish the ground rules of how we want Mayville to grow. So after we get to that point, then I want to work with the chamber. I want to work with job creating opportunities for the very purpose of building our tax base. We need to do that. It's vital in today's world. We have to have taxpayers. In our little village, if you start looking at all the different properties that are tax exempt, it's kind of astounding. And we do pretty well for having that many that aren't paying their fair share. So, excuse me. So I think that would be the other thing would be to engage our partners, to avail ourselves of the grants and programs that are out there for villages in New York State now, especially now, and to help bring businesses back to Mayville. And I think I can do that. I have a good track record of starting a building and keeping businesses profitable in this environment. So,
Thank you, Mr. Perry. We'll move on to the mayoral candidates. Again, the question, what is your vision for Mayville in the short run and the long run? You have 2 minutes, Mr. Syper.
Thank you. To be honest, I've struggled with this question of short and long vision. These visions can change at any second. For instance, I cannot envision Mayor Scher had any thought 2 years into his term, his vision for the village would take a huge change with the water crisis. With strong leadership, these visions can come to reality. Short-term needs to equal the long-term vision. My vision of hope is one village, one community in Mayville strong. Accomplishing objectives and goals determined through the comprehensive plan process that will keep my campaign promise of one village, one community in Mayville strong. This community process will show many options for Mayville's development. This may change our vision. We will need to be open-minded on this process while working for one village, starting with community involvement, taking pride with our village, working towards common goals, continuing beautifying uptown that I started by donating baskets and flowers with the care coming from business owners, hiring an economic chair to work with the community chamber and business to promote Mayville as a recreation destination stop that can connect our park system to the business district. Continue working on the water upgrades. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Syper. The question, what is your vision for Mayville in the short run and the long run? You have 2 minutes, candidate Jean Lobaugh.
Yes, I think we all agree here that in the short run, we definitely need to execute the water activation project should we be awarded the grants. And that's really a big deal. It took a lot of effort to get as far as we are. So short run, that's definitely number one on the list. I think we also need to approach the people that hold empty properties in the village. And we need to approach them with reasonable, well thought out plans about how we would utilize those spaces that might make a difference in their wanting to work with us in the community. We need to pry those properties loose one way or the other and make them economically feasible again. And that would help us build on what's already happening uptown. There are quite a few things to be proud of uptown already. We have the new quintessential print shop and the Mayberry Jungle, and Serena Gilkinson has her office up there. The Music for Your Mouth is up there. The hardware store is hanging in there. Trevor Nickerson is buying the theater building. I mean, those are all awesome things that are happening uptown. And I want to thank all those people that are doing that. Your food truck too, and so that there's a lot of people putting their money where their mouth is, you know, and investing in the community. So we want to keep that up and see if we can do something about the ones that are still empty. I envision using a lot of people's ideas to get there from here, because so far nobody's come up with the answer. I don't have the answer, but somebody does if we all work together. Lastly, I envision us collaborating with Chamber of Commerce, of which I am on the board, and the lake management organizations and every level of government to work on our comprehensive plan and make a long-term plan and use it.
Thank you. We'll move on to the final question we have that was provided ahead of time for the candidates. They will have 1 minute to respond to this question. We'll again begin with the trustee candidates and then move on to the mayoral candidates. The final question that we have prepared in advance: what do you think is the #1 priority for the village government right now? You have 1 minute, trustee candidate Eagle Harrington.
So right now, we need to decide what we're gonna do with the water project, which way we're gonna go with it, how we're going to, whether we're gonna get clean, fresh water from a new well, or whether we're gonna filter out from the other well. The other thing we have to do is, reread the question again?
Just what do you think is the #1 priority for the village government right now?
Also, the #1 priority is to discuss together before we go to vote on stuff. We need to actually get together more and decide things as a group. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, the question, what do you think is the number one priority for the village government right now? You have 1 minute, Mark Perry.
Thanks, Steve. Harmony, that to me is the key word, is build harmony, build cooperation, engage in civil discourse. We're all gonna have different ideas. We have to bring them based on factual evidence together, discuss them, and then go and create a path forward. As I said earlier, I'm not a politician, I'm a businessman. I don't like it at this level where Republicans and Democrats, there should be no division. We're all Mayvillians, if there's such a term. But that's what I think the number one priority is to build the harmony and engage you, the residents.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. And the final trustee candidate, what do you think is the number one priority for the village government right now? You have 1 minute, Bill Ward.
The first priority, and this is a vital one, is to install a talented, capable, even-tempered, intelligent team at the village level to take advantage of those opportunities that everybody here is talking about. I'd like to say that I'm not a politician. I have been. You know, we all say that I mean, I don't mean that. Mark's really not. But I mean, I remember going to a couple of things, and everybody started out with those words. I'm not a politician. Well, I've been a politician. I've been through the town halls and putting signs in the yards and photo ops and buttons and it's not about platitudes. It's not about photo ops. It's not about buttons and signs. It's about a consistently demonstrated leadership through even-tempered, intelligent, coherent, and compassionate work with other gifted community leadership to achieve the goals that we've all talked about.
Thank you, Mr. Ward. Again, the question, we'll move on to the mayoral candidates now. The question is, what do you think is the number one priority for the village government right now? You have 1 minute, candidate Jean Lobaugh.
Yes, I also believe, along with Bill and other people that have already mentioned it, the number one priority is to bring us all together and work for the common good. That is the number one priority. We can do all those other things on the list if we just do that. I would like to create an environment where all the residents are respected for their ideas and their input. And there is no need for any of us to fight our battles with, in the media or with lawyers or backroom politics, any of that stuff. We don't need to do that. We just need to have an environment where we can all be respected for our values and be able to work on them together. I just think we need a breath of fresh air.
Thank you. And finally, what do you think is the number one priority for the village government right now? Mayoral candidate Rick Syper.
Thank you. One village, one community, Mayville together. Is there just one priority for our village? No. Water concerns, employee retention, making sure keeping our trained staff, understaffing the village office, the need of part-time employees for staff training, sick or vacation time or retirement, enhancement to the summer rec program. After 2 years away, needing to bring back the lifeguards, the beach, building on more community togetherness. One example, events. I remember Christmas events as a young person, with the Mayville Fire Department in the Uptown Green with Santa next to a lit tree with music. Connection of Lakeside Park, Uptown to Greatness, adding a theme to advertise Mayville as a place to visit, create a family community which develops a year-round community and promotes tourism with our resources, with comp plan process, we hopefully will address these items I've spoken of. Leadership is not about being the best. Leadership is about making everyone else great. If I can finish with a statement or quote from Helen Keller. Alone, we can do so little. Together, we can do so much. These are the boundaries we will need to break, like Helen did, for Mayville's future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Syper. So we've reached the end of the advanced questions. It's time now to field questions from members of the audience, if you have any. If you do have a question for the candidates, please raise your hand and I will call on you. Please keep your question general. Make sure it's a question and don't preface it with too much of anecdotal information or commentary. So that all candidates can respond. Again, keep it general rather than directing it to one specific candidate. Once your question is asked, I will again restate the question for each candidate as they are called on. So with that being said, does anyone in the audience have a question that they would like to pose to our 5 candidates? Yes, ma'am.
I would like to ask, since announcing their candidacy, if any of the candidates have done any homework per se to learn about the position that they're campaigning for. What kind of things have you done to learn about what it takes to fill that role?
Very good. Thank you. So each candidate will have 1 minute to respond. Again, the question is, since announcing your candidacy, what have you learned from getting feedback from voters here in the Mayville area to prepare you for your role in government? With that being said, we have 1 minute and we'll begin with the mayoral candidates. Rick Syper.
20+ years I've been in training. I've been working since 20-some years old to this position, working within the community, being involved in the community, many different boards. And I feel I am qualified for this and done my homework in learning to better myself to this position.
Thank you, Mr. Syper. We'll move on to the next mayoral candidate. That'll be Jean Lobaugh. Again, Jean, the question is, since announcing your candidacy, what have you learned in terms of feedback from voters you've approached?
Oh, I've learned a lot. It's amazing. People are more than willing to share what they would like to see done in the village. So I've dedicated myself to listening. I've also gone above and beyond a little bit. I've gone out to spend a couple hours with each of the people that are currently in the administration, in the office. Our treasurer up at the village, our village clerk, our receptionist. I've spent time with John Buxton. I've spent time with the mayor of Sherman, the mayor of Westfield, Sheriff Quattrone. I've interviewed all those people and asked them what they're doing that seems to be working and what we can do in Mayville to build on that.
Thank you. We'll move on to the trustee candidates. Again, the question is, since announcing your candidacy, what have you learned based on feedback from constituents to prepare you for your role in government? And we'll give Mr. Perry the first crack at that question among the trustees.
Thanks, Jason. Again, I'm not a politician, but I sought out the endorsement of the Republicans. I sought out the endorsement of the Democrats. And during that process, I found out we all think alike. We all have those same dreams, those same hopes. We really don't have different ways to get there. We just want to get there together. And I think that I knew that. I knew that that wasn't what should keep us apart. Having one common goal should bring us together. And I think that's probably the greatest lesson I learned. It's something I think I already knew, was the fact that we all want a better Mayville.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next candidate. The question, since announcing your candidacy, what have you learned based on feedback from constituents to prepare you for your role in government? No more. You have 1 minute.
Thank you, and thanks for that question. It's a really good one, because, clearly there are 2 people here who have practical experience. Because yours was about doing homework about your particular job, yes? And we have 2 people here who have practical experience. So I think that is an easy question for them to answer. They have done this. I can point to before and since my candidacy, I continually work with mayors and trustees and all kinds of folks in my work with the Chicago Watershed Conservancy, with Chicago Rails and Trails especially. By the way, we are so much closer to connecting this trail here in Mayville with the Erie-Pittsburgh Trail, which all of a sudden elevates us to trail town status right here in Mayville. Brockton is close to having trail town status. That's a national designation, by the way. So it's an ongoing process. I believe that there's nothing that I've really done beyond that other than keeping on doing the things that I'm doing. Thanks for that. It's great.
Thank you, Bill. Again, the question, since announcing your candidacy, what have you learned based on feedback from constituents to prepare you for your role in government? Eagle Harrington, you have 1 minute.
Well, I've been a trustee for the last 4 years. I've learned a lot of things within those 4 years, but I've also learned going around and speaking with people is that more people have been interested in this local politics since the last time I went out and had a campaign 4 years ago. Thank you.
Thank you, Eagle. That does it for question 1 from the audience. Does anyone else in the audience have a question they'd like to pose to the candidates? Yes, sir.
Nobody's talked about money yet, okay? We're all concerned about that. In the next few years, you've got a water project coming up. We saw the presentation here the other night. You're talking $5 to $7 million, depending on the grant money. The village is gonna be on the hook for $500,000 if we don't get that taken care of. The park project, if that flies through, we're on the hook for $250,000 there. And the fire department wants $1 million truck. So I would like to know, how do you prioritize those big purchases? And if you got time, how are you gonna pay for them?
I think we would refer to those purchases as financial challenges facing the village in the next few years. I'll just refer to them as that. And so with that being said, the question is, what is your plan for prioritizing and addressing the financial challenges facing the village over the short term? With that question being posed, thank you, sir. Each candidate has a minute to respond. We'll begin with the trustee candidates, and we'll begin with Bill Ward. We have 1 minute.
Thanks, Tom. That's good stuff, because during the whole process, let's break down, for instance, the waterfront activation thing. It is completely and absolutely a challenge. That's why we're going to leave all of those questions up to the town.
I'm there with you.
No, I mean, a lot of that has been spelled out. Gene talked about that. We are not, nothing is guaranteed in this life. There are plans. I believe that there are a lot of, for instance, the waterfront activation. There were specific plans for this with regard to matching, with regard to the funding that's available. And are there going to be some leaps of faith with regard to moving our village forward? You're darn right there are. And that is a thing. That's
Your time is up. Mr. Ward, again, each candidate has 1 minute to address the question. The question posed by the audience member is, how do you plan to prioritize and address the financial challenges facing the village over the short term?
By the way, I hope that that is a thing is the soundbite that comes from.
With that being said, Eagle Harrington, you have 1 minute.
So we're gonna have to prioritize exactly what we need to get done first. There's actually what we have to do. We have to decide what needs to be done first, and then we have to move on from there. Otherwise, yeah, you can have all those things done. Your taxes are gonna go up, your water rates are gonna go up. It's all a money thing. But at the end of the day, we need to sit down as a board and decide exactly what needs to be done first, and we need to work our way through it, piece by piece by piece. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, the question, how do you plan to prioritize and address the upcoming financial challenges facing the village in the next year or two? And we'll pose that question to trustee candidate Mark Perry. Mark, 1 minute.
Thanks, Jason. I think, to me, number one priority is water. I think through our past administration, we've done a great job in getting the problem that nobody knew about handled and got to a status where we have water we can drink again. We don't have to buy it in the bottles or get it in the bottles, that type of thing. But with that comes some financial challenges, and that's where I think we need to engage our partners, in this case, the town, the county, and the state, which I do believe some of that groundwork has been laid. So, to me, that's the first one. Secondly, after that would be the waterfront reactivation is important, but it's not an absolute in the fact that if we don't raise that kind of money, we don't have to go and get on the hook for it. But I don't want to take that course. I'd like to find that money. I think it's available again through working with our partners through the state and the grant programs. So to me, those are the two most vital, but really water is number one. Without water, we're in trouble. So that's what I would recommend.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. Moving on to the mayoral candidates, we'll ask the same question. How do you plan to prioritize and address the financial challenges facing the village in the next year or two? And we'll begin with mayoral candidate Jean Lobaugh. Jean, you have 1 minute.
Yes, this is a big deal, obviously, and I will never be in charge of making the decisions alone. There will always be a team working on that, so that's the number one thing to remember. I did sit down with Jennifer up at the village and looked at the books, and she's done an awesome job of keeping, not just her, but everyone in the previous administrations have been very conservative with the village's money. So we come into this in a good spot, really. Obviously, the protection of the water we drink and use is number one. That's a given. How far we go with that, that's debatable. There were several options laid out by the engineers about that project. We don't have to do the whole $7 million, but that is an option. And I do believe the water activation project deserves our full attention, because that's what is going to make this village more attractive to people.
Thank you, Jean. And then finally, for this question, how do you plan to prioritize and address the financial challenges facing the village in the next year or two? Mayoral candidate Rick Syper. Rick, 1 minute.
Thanks, Don, for the question. That is a huge question and a concern of mine. The fire department's looking for $1 million trust that we have to come up with money. And I've started talking to Jen about all these projects and trying to prioritize where this money will come from. And again, like these great folks next to me talked about prioritizing those needs, what will have to come first, and we'll have to make the hard decisions on what ones are funded and what isn't, because the only way we're going to fund all of them is reaching in our pockets and paying a little bit more taxes. And I've worked very hard for 20+ years to maintain a lowest possible tax rate for this community so we can all live here for our families and our future families. And my great-grandson, well, not my great-grandson, but my grandson, that's great. Fabulous grandson. And that's what we have to be concerned about and work as a team to get to that goal that we need in this community.
Thank you, Rick. That'll do it for the second question from the audience. Anybody else in the audience have a question they'd like to pose for the candidates up here? Yes, sir.
Sure. Gene brought up the topic of open storefronts in Mayville and uptown. What can we do to bring more businesses? Talking about your grandson, hopefully have a job. What can we do to bring more businesses to Mayville?
Question is, what can be done to attract more businesses to Mayville? And each candidate will have one question to respond to that question. Thank you, sir. And we'll begin with mayoral candidate Rick Syper. Rick, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. My campaign, one Mayville, one community, Mayville together. We all have to come together to have a vision. I own a business. I can put a business in any one of those open up front down there. If this community doesn't support those businesses, those storefronts will be empty. So the theme of one community, one village, Mayville together will create the positive feedback that businesses need to open up the businesses and make Uptown viable again.
Thank you, Rick. The question, what can be done to attract more businesses to Mayville? Mayoral candidate Jean Lobaugh, you have 1 minute.
Yes, I am the one that brought that up. It is a huge challenge. It's not gonna be easy. As we all know, there's one person that owns $1 million assessed value of buildings uptown. The hard part, I think, is because our uptown is, we have this constraint. The uptown is so far away from the waterfront. So developing the waterfront, unfortunately, doesn't immediately have an impact on uptown. But I think if we address those two things at the same time, and always keep that in mind, the comprehensive plan is what is going to pull that together. And also, the comprehensive plan will allow us to talk to people about what our future goals are and get them involved in it. So I think we just have a lot of hard work ahead of us to make that happen.
Thank you, Jean. We'll move on to the trustee candidates. Again, the question, what can be done to attract more businesses to Mayville? And we'll begin with Eagle Harrington. Eagle, 1 minute.
Well, like Jean said, we do have a guy that owns a lot of the businesses up there, well, the buildings. And I've heard over years that he's hard to deal with. But the biggest thing we need to do as a community, we need to get people that want to do stuff like put in a business, we need to support them. Help them achieve what they want to do in Mayville. You can just have a business come in, but if the community doesn't support the business, it's not going to go very far. Thank you.
Thank you, Eagle. Again, the question, what can be done to attract more businesses to Mayville? And you have 1 minute, candidate Mark Perry.
Thanks, Jason. As we all know, there is one individual that owns a tremendous amount of property, and it would be to engage them and see what their plans are. We would need to free up some of that space to create the environment for entrepreneurs to come in. Now, we all know that New York is not the easiest place to do business, but there are certain things we can do. One being we can engage our partners as far as getting grants, et cetera, to help them get started. At one time, Mayville had a revolving loan program where the community would back little businesses and help them get financing and to basically reinvest in their village. But I think we have a lot of synergy with what's happening to our north in Westfield and also to our south in Lakewood and Chautauqua, where we have to create an environment that is attractive to people to want to stop. And I think that would come in the form of some of the New York facade grants that are out there for basically improving our downtown look. And I think you create that energy by supporting the people that do reach out with their own money to get involved.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. Finally, what can be done to attract more businesses to Mayville? Candidate Bill Ward. Bill, 1 minute.
Thank you. The problems that have been identified, the proximity of the village to the lake, the high rent, and the ownership, the unavailability of some of the buildings. The thing that we have, and I'm going to beat this drum for a long time, we have things that are intrinsically valuable. We have the most beautiful lakefront here. We have a depot right there that could be converted. Next year is the 100th anniversary of the building of that depot. That could be converted to an all-purpose building that could be for instance, a welcome center. That would house vendors, people like the grape industry, the beer industry, the art industry, the Chautauqua Institution, that would be able to, again, one of those things would be to leverage this valuable lakefront so that people are more interested in coming here. Because guess what? We could put in a whole bunch of businesses, and all of us are not going to be able to support it. We need more people visiting here.
Thank you, Mr. Ward. And before we move on, I do want to note we've reached reached 1 hour into our forum. I was instructed that if we reach the hour mark and the candidates are game, we can field some more questions, but I don't want you all to get feel like there's too much pressure on you with all these questions being thrown at you, but I think a very informative forum so far. Unless there's any objections, we can probably field one more question if there are any. Candidates, any objections? Okay, we'll try to do one or two more. If there are any candidates from here in house first. Before you, sir, we'll wait and see if there's anybody else, because I know you had already asked a question. Yeah, Debbie.
So my question is a light and a fun question. This is your hometown, so when you tell people where you live when you're out of town, how do you describe the village? How do you describe Mayville?
I guess it's sort of a marketing branding question, correct? How do you brand and market Mayville to outsiders when you're out on the road? Good question, thank you, Debbie. And so with that question being posed, we'll begin with trustee candidates and Mark Perry. You get the first crack at it, 1 minute.
That's fitting. She didn't brief me on that question. We do brag about it when we do travel. I travel a lot in business and on pleasure, and you always talk, where are you from? I say Mayville, New York. And the question is, well, what's there? And I said, first of all, a lot of snow. Secondly, a beautiful lake. Thirdly, a very warm and generous community that is safe, beautiful to live in, fully embraces the 4 seasons. And if you want a place to come where you feel welcome very quickly, Mayville, New York is a great destination. And I just think that with that kind of bragging, we've had some people that have come here and have experienced a lot of the joys that we have in Mayville. So it's a great hometown. I didn't come from here. I fell in love and moved here, and I'm glad I did. Not in that order though. Falling in love is the best. Moving here in second. But it's a great place. As I said earlier, we sent our son to school up here, and that's world class, and I think we need to leverage that. I think that is a gem that needs to be.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. Good seeing you as well. We'll move on to trustee candidate Bill Ward. Again, the question posed, Bill, is how would you describe market brand Mayville to outsiders? 1 minute.
You have not lived until you have driven down that hill on any kind of day, virtually any kind of day, and seen that vista. It's an amazing thing. So it's a beautiful town. It is a beautiful town. There is a difference, though, between destination and diversion. Diversion is the place you go, and then you go somewhere else. Because a lot of times we describe our town as being really close to Chicago, really close to the wineries, really close to stuff. We are dangerously close to just being a diversion. We want to become a destination again. I want to be able to describe my town as a place that you can stay and you don't have to leave because it's where you want to live.
Thank you, Bill. And finally, for the trustee candidates, Eagle Harrington, how do you describe brand market Mayville to outsiders?
Well, I don't very often go outside of Mayville. Other than the work. But when I do go out, I've been to North Carolina, a couple other places, and I wear like chocolate clothing for the school, and you'll get people all the time, wait, you're from there? Yeah, like people know Mayville. People from everywhere know Mayville more than you would actually believe. But everybody, whenever I take and I talk about Mayville, it's my nice, quiet town. I've been here. Mayville's where I've been my whole life, other than when I was in college. But, thank you.
Thank you, Eagle. Now we'll move on to the mayoral candidates. Again, the question, how do you describe brand market Mayville to outsiders? And we'll begin with Jean Lobaugh. Jean, you have 1 minute.
Yes, we moved here on purpose to open bed and breakfast. So obviously we know what a beautiful place it is. We wouldn't have come here otherwise. It would have been a lost cause to move somewhere where no one's attracted to come. When building our websites, we found so many places that we could link to. People can come here for everything. They can come here for the wineries, the breweries, ice fishing, the boating, fishing, you name it, they can come here for that. And it is truly a four-season place to come. And a lot of artisans in town, a lot of people come here strictly for the artwork. There's a lot here and so much to build on. I think we can just keep the momentum going and make this even better.
Thank you, Jean. And finally, the question for Mr. Syper. How do you describe Brandon Market Mayville to outsiders? You have 1 minute.
I smile, I grew up here. What a beautiful place to live. What a beautiful place to brag about. You raise your family, raise 3 great children. The school system, the beautiful resources we have. Everything everyone said is what Mayville is, and I smile and tell people it's a great warm place to come, visit, and stay.
It's
Come,
home.
move to Mayville. Thank you, absolutely, it's home.
Thank you, Rick. Debbie, were there any questions from the online? Good to hear. Any final questions here from the audience? Folks who have not asked, I don't see any other hands going up. I know this gentleman had a second question, and I think you will get the final question in for the evening before we wrap it up with a minute for closing remarks. What's your final question?
I just want to talk about the diner property. We've all been through a lot with the diner property. The village will now control that property, I believe. That's a done deal. We did discuss at a town board meeting, budget meeting, that we would love to get rid of our property on that corner. And I would like to know from the board members, it'll be up to the board as to what's gonna happen to that property, whether we're gonna have something cozy, something nice, Tim Hortons or whatever. What would you like to see there? Because there's a lot of different ideas about what should go on that property.
All right. What do you envision for the future of the diner property?
Yeah.
Good question. And we'll begin with the trustee candidates. And Bill Ward, you have 1 minute. What do you envision for the future of the diner property?
I don't know. You know, the approach to uptown is a holistic one. We can pick out any number of properties to talk about and to wonder about and to discover how we're going to, for instance, wrest them out of a landlord's hands, or what we're going to do with an empty piece of property. I can tell you that, you know, you mentioned a chain, bringing a chain in here. There are, I would not be in favor of that. I think that there are some, I could probably change my mind, but I doubt it. But I don't think that there's any one answer for any one property. You know, we talked about how to build up the uptown. We talked about the challenges that presents. So it's an interesting question, but I don't know the answer to that.
Thank you, Bill. Again, the question, what do you envision for the future of the diner property? Eagle Harrington, 1 minute.
Well, I know that we were working on getting the diner property through the tax. I didn't know it was completely done yet. But I know we've talked about the different ways that we wanted to look at it, whether we were going to sell it, to put it back on tax roll, to have somebody do what they dream of doing on the property, or another option. I'm unsure of what's gonna happen at this point. And to me, as long as something happens with that property, get something in here, that's all I care. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, the question is, what do you envision for the future of the diner property? Mark Perry.
I said it earlier, the village doesn't need any more tax exempt property. I'm all in favor, and along with the town, of getting those properties in a position, because I feel that's what our job is to create the environment for private business, private investors, entrepreneurs, to realize their vision here. And whether it be a chain or a private individual, I don't care about that. I care about the fact that we get it back on the tax laws.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to the mayoral candidates. The question, what do you envision for the future of the diner property? Rick Syper, 1 minute.
Tom, thank you for that question. I've been on the record of saying that we needed to acquire this property to secure our cleanup efforts that we've done. And with that, we need to market it with a real estate company, to an RFP type situation, to work with the town, to get that back onto the rolls of the taxes. And with the RFP type process, we will have the ability to feel what's the best options that come from that, from businesses. Maybe it's a $30,000 purchase and they want to put a great business in there that we can help them with. Maybe someone wants to build a house on it and we can have those choices. But I feel that that's the best way of going about to choose through the town and the village to market that property.
Thank you, Rick. And finally, to Gene Lobaugh, what do you envision for the future of the Diner property?
I think it's a little premature just yet to envision that. The reason I say that is the comprehensive plan is going to tell us a lot about how we want to brand our community, what theme we want to go with in our community, what kind of businesses we want to support and bring here. So I would hesitate to jump into that without a lot of asking, trying to get input from a lot of people. I do think it should be a commercial property and not residential, because that's what we're needing here, right? So I do think it should be commercial. I'm also not a big fan of the big names coming in here like Tim Hortons. I'd rather see us have our own flavor to things. But that's my opinion, and it wouldn't just be my opinion, it would be a lot of input from a lot of people.
Thank you, Gene. That'll do it for the questions. I think it's appropriate to give each candidate an opportunity for a final comment, the closing remarks, if you will, before we wrap it up for the evening. You've all been a wonderful audience, so thank you so much for having the undivided attention of our candidates here and vice versa. So with that being said, I'll give you each 1 minute for closing final thoughts and comments. Make your final pitch, if you will, of why constituents should vote for you on election day. And we will begin with the mayoral candidates. And because Rick Syper went first, we'll let candidate Gene Lobaugh go first this time with the closing remarks. Gene, 1 minute.
Thank you. I want to thank you all for coming, most of all, because it's important that you listen to all of our ideas and provide your ideas, because it's vitally important. And I hope you all go out and vote. I really hope that you've learned a lot about me tonight, as much as can be in an hour. My biggest hope is that we can kind of reboot the board and make it an environment where people feel like they can give a lot of input and be respected. Thank you.
Thank you, Gene. Rick Syper, 1 minute closing remarks.
Again, my campaign has always been about one Mayville, one community, and Mayville together. And I feel I have that experience to help work with the board and to bring us to that realization that we as a community need to come together to connect the uptown with the downtown here. And that will bring our community district back with my experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Now we'll move on to the trustee candidates. 1 minute closing remarks. Eagle Harrington.
Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. I'm just gonna say, get out and vote, November 8th, or pre-voting. Other than that, I love being here as a trustee, and if I get to do it again, I'll be happy. If not, I'm just happy that we're still moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Closing remarks. Mark Perry, 1 minute.
Vote, that's the important thing. Get engaged, go out and vote. I hope you give me the opportunity to serve you, because that's what I feel the village board does, is serve its residents. And I would welcome any and all of your participation in any of our meetings. any of our activities. I hope to engage you in the form of local committees for different projects. And we can do this, we can do it together. So I'm looking forward to it. It's gonna be fun. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. And then finally, Bill Ward, 1 minute closing remarks.
Thank you. Of course, I'm grateful to Rick and Mark and Eagle and Jean for doing this. This is a great forum. But mostly, I'm really grateful that all of you care enough to be here. Your job is to help other folks who care about it. There will be a live stream of this that you can share to help people be informed. I do want to thank the engagement of Jason Sample for his expert leadership here. We're poised to do great things. We are poised to do fabulous things. We need to leverage the stuff that has already happened. I keep using the stuff word, thanks. We need a talented, capable, even-tempered team to do that. I think that there are folks here who can do that. You can decide that on election day. You vote, give folks a right to vote, and be a part of the movement here.
Thank you, Bill. That will conclude the forum. I'll remind you that, again, Election Day is November 8th. I'm sure you all know where your polling places are. Go to votechautauqua.com if you're unsure. Also, early voting runs from October 22nd, Saturday to Sunday, October 30th. And to find your early voting polling locations, I believe there's 4 of them here in Chautauqua County, the mall, the Robert H. Jackson Center, the Dunkirk Fairgrounds, and right here in the county seat at the Board of Elections is where you can go to vote for early voting. Keep that in mind. And if I'm not mistaken, there is one more forum next month on Wednesday, October 26th. Is that correct?
Well, we haven't really set that yet.
That was a possibility. Well, I've got it reserved on my schedule. It's not like I have anything else to do. So on a Wednesday night anyway. So it's the only night that I'm free. With that being said, give yourselves a round of applause for again giving the Thank you all. Don't forget to vote.
What's that? You taking the collection? Yes. I'm not on board. Yes, you're welcome. Alright. Stop this crazy thing. I do.